So we have looked at some of the problems of comparative analysis, but the comparative analysis has some more questions to answer. So one of the problems which we face or researchers face when doing comparative analysis is unavailability of comparable data. For example, uh, India and all major economies have quarterly GDP data, meaning thereby that they know in each quarter whether their country grew by a certain percentage or there was a recession and it lost some percentage of in terms of GDP. In Pakistan, we don't have quarterly GDPs, so we only have annual GDP. So if we want to compare the GDPs of Pakistan and India, we will have some problems. Either we have to look for some data which is not there, that is the quarterly GDP, or we will have to ignore the quarterly GDP of India and compare only the annual GDP figures which are present for both countries. Then difficulty in identifying appropriate functional equivalents. So for example, if we look at quarterly GDPs and we don't have it, we can look for it for equivalents. So yes, that variable is not present with us, but can we have some other variable which can give us some notion of what was the quarterly GDP of Pakistan in the last quarter of 29? So this can be done. Then they are missing variables. So that, for example, if we look at the SDGs, one of the variables is how many women are in each year murdered by their domestic partners, meaning thereby their partners, civil partners or husbands. So of course this data is not present with us. So these are some of the areas, some of the variables which if we want to improve, we will have to spend money and do some effort to get these variables. And when they are not there, we can't, of course, compare another country, for example, Britain or, for example, Turkey with Pakistan, because they have these figures and we don't have these figures. Then, of course, in the comparative analysis, we have to be very careful about the different historical and cultural contexts. So the numbers may be same, but the reasons may be different for the same number. So Pakistan grew by 2%, maybe 3% last year, and another country, maybe Turkey, also grew by 3%. But the historical context or the cultural context of the two countries may be very different. The reasons of this 3% increase in GDP can be very different, and a researcher has to focus on that if it has to do a vigorous and correct comparative analysis. Now, comparative analysis can be of different kinds. So there is this 2 or less than 2 or more than 2 or less than 5. You compare less than 5 countries. So it's primarily qualitative. Then there is the large. You compare large number of countries. So 10, 20, 30, 50. This is primarily quantitative research. And then there is the idea that you compare different eras or different periods of the same country. So we can, for example, we can compare the 1960s Pakistan with the 1980s Pakistan, or 1980s Pakistan with the current Pakistan. The large N studies or large number studies, meaning thereby a very large number of countries or states we are looking at, this is quantitative and there are few variables. And the context is not that important. While in small N studies, meaning by a small number of studies, there are variables, more variables, or variables may be the same, but the context is very important. So when you are doing a qualitative study, you don't focus everything on numbers, and you try to get to the bottom of things. You look at history, you look at different reasons. Then there is the issue of unit of analysis. Usually in comparative analysis, the unit of analysis is the state or country. Most of the time is there, but sometimes the countries are too big or too small for the unit of analysis. So if we look at the impact of Catholicism on social policy, we may be looking at more than one country, because Catholicism is the majority religion in many countries. For example, in Latin America, almost all the countries are have a Catholic majority, and then there are Catholic majority countries in Europe like Italy, Spain, and France. And then, of course, the unit of analysis can be smaller than a state. For example, if you look at the role of caste in Indian politics, we may look at national level, or we compare the role of caste in politics of different states. So we may compare the prominence of caste in Haryana with Maharashtra, or Punjab with Kashmir, or UP with Bihar. So then, of course, there is the issue of that there are some studies in which data is available from different countries, but they are not comparative studies. Why? Because of the fact that different chapters are looking at different countries, and there is no comparative engagement of different variables in different countries. So if you look at the growth of comparative social policy in the late 70s, there was not until the late 70s there were not many books on the subject. There was some methodological issues, but the focus was primarily on Western countries. It was only that 1980s that things became more non-European, and then there was the focus on different groups and different problems, and of course better data sets and more computational power helped.